Livingston, Northern Rhodesia, 1960. It was a Friday morning and I was covered from head to toe in strong-smelling local African beer. I should have been at school. Instead, I was running as fast as I could, beer spraying everywhere, dodging in and out of the trees, jumping the gullies and dry riverbeds as though they were not even there. Fear had given me wings. Running next to me, just as wet and smelly, was my black friend Robert, each of us carrying a bag of masese slung over our shoulders. It was still very early in the morning. The smoke from hundreds of cooking fires was hanging in the trees, and the smell of boiling maize and kaffir corn was strong in the air. Robert and I had just raided the local open-air beer brewing factory and were being chased by several pissed-off brewers. If you wanted to catch fish in the Zambezi River, you had to have masese, the fresher the better. Masese is the dregs of the beer brewing process. It smells strongly of yeast and consists of all the various grains used to make the beer. It settles to the bottom of the 44-gallon drums used by the locals to make beer and is dynamite when it comes to catching fish. If you wanted it fresh, no more than a day or so old, then you had to visit the beer factory and buy it. This was one way of getting it. However, if you wanted fresh like I did, and had no money, you raided the factory, pushed over a 44-gallon drum of cold beer, and gathered the dregs by hand. Then you filled up your bag and took off, normally closely pursued by unhappy brewers. The brewers were fat and overweight from drinking too much of their product, and normally called it a day after a couple of 100 meters. It was a still, warm evening. The rising moon painted a road of silver across the black mirror-like water. The trees were silhouetted by the moon against the dark blue of the sky and took on weird, mystical shapes. In the distance, I could hear the roar of the Victoria Falls, and closer, the occasional grunt of a hippo. Lying across from me on the other side of the fire was Robert. I was happy and content. Our fresh masese had worked wonders. Our bags were full of fish, ready to sell to the white fishermen the next morning. With a stomach full of fresh fish, hands waving in a vain attempt to keep the mosquitoes at bay, I relaxed. It had been a bad week. Then the black water exploded, and I was staring down the throat of a foul-smelling, red-eyed, enraged hippo bull. A bad week had just got worse. A few days earlier, I'd been in big trouble. 12 years old, naked, my behind full of thick red welts, I tried to bring my crying under control. The bath was full of broken wooden coat hangers, the result of the hiding I had just received from my father for selling all the mango trees in our yard to some Indian gentleman to make mango chutney.